Innovation, energy, audacity. These three words often define youth, and in Africa, they are beginning to define an entire generation of change makers, reshaping what entrepreneurship looks like across the continent. From fintech to agri-tech, health, and even education, youth-led startups are no longer just ideas in dorm rooms. They are now at the forefront of solving real African problems with uniquely African solutions. Today, we are diving into the role of young innovators and the fresh leadership they're bringing into the African startup ecosystem. And our guest is someone who embodies that movement. Welcome to Tech Passion Special with Gabriella Michael. So on the show today, we have Khayelihle Nkabinde. He is a social entrepreneur, community builder, and if I may add, a philanthropist who's been a constant force for youth empowerment and startup development. Together, we'll explore what it really means for young Africans to lead innovation and whether the ecosystem is truly ready for us. Welcome to the show, Kai. It's great having you in Tech Fashion Special.
Good evening, Gabriela. Nice to see you. Thank you so much.
All right. So, how's the weather like in South Africa today?
Yeah, it's pretty hot today. It's pretty hot. It's pretty nice. Actually, for walking on. Yeah, things are pretty nice in South Africa.
So, where exactly are you right now? South Africa, Johannesburg? I think
I'm
it's
in,
supposed to be like Johannesburg. I kind of know.
I'm in Durban. I'm in Durban.
But all the same, it's great having you. You're not right in Nigeria, but then Tech Fashion is based right now in Nigeria. So, it's great having you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, so before we start diving into the ecosystem, before we start talking about innovations and finding out if the world is truly ready for youths like us, let's figure out where it all started. Let's start with the backstory, okay? Because you've obviously built a name as a community builder and a youth advocate, but I want to know what actually pushed this. Was it a personal moment? Was it a series of moments? What pushed you to actually spark a passion for empowering young people and driving change in the startup space?
Oh yes. I think for my side, it's more of a personal story. I was in grade 11. I was very good at sports. I played great hockey. And there were moments where I couldn't get funding for play and other places in terms of getting transport money, just getting the simple stuff. And then what happened before was that now I realized that besides myself, there were other kids affected in different sports besides sports, it's getting academic books, so on and so on. So I just figured out at a very young age to form my own organization to put a white net to go for for the youth to tap into. And through that, I was able to knock on doors and just to help people around me, to help themselves as well to get to the specific resources.
Quite interesting one there. So let's dive into the real conversation, okay? Let's talk about the rise of the youth-led startups that we're obviously seeing taking over the world. And if we're going based on facts, as of 2024, youth-led businesses accounted for 44.4% of total business surveyed in Nigeria. Let's use Nigeria as a case scenario. I mean, we call the giants of Africa, maybe for a reason though. But obviously, this obviously marks the highest share in 4 years. And this surge indicates a significant shift in the entrepreneurial landscape. I want to know from your perspective, what factors do you think are driving this rise we're seeing in youth-led startups, and how does it reflect the broader changes in Africa's startup ecosystem?
Well, I think from my perspective, and sort of founder, call it whatever you call it may be, I think because we haven't really nurtured the young startup individuals in terms of listening to each startup, in terms of understanding what we're trying to drive in the ecosystem. So I think just to speak for myself, there's a room for more for growth in Africa, but I think we are heading the right direction in terms of uplifting the youth and actually listening because right now the youth we are the one who are looking for the future. And I think it's about time to get listened to and also be understood and what we're trying to drive.
Okay, so if we're actually talking about, irrespective of all of this growth that we've seen, and we're looking at Africa as a whole, we understand that startups in Africa faced a 22% drop in deal volume, and a 28% decline in deal value. That was last year, 2024. Yet we get to actually still see the rise or of median VC deals actually rise, suggesting that while fewer deals are happening, they are obviously still large. How would you interpret this trend, especially for young entrepreneurs that are seeking funding?
Yeah, I've came across a few women interested in sort of VC funding as well. I've also tried it myself as well. I would say that if you get your funding into your business and your startup, you should understand your competitors, first of all, understand what you're trying to go for and
Okay.
what is your community that you're looking into. The other thing, one of the key mistakes I've seen from my own startup is that I had the idea, but I couldn't understand how to get there. And it also starts off with getting teach the right people to understand what I'm trying to do. So I think those people can still rise up or decline if we are nurtured by the right investors and understanding what we're trying to go for as a startup individual.
Yeah, most definitely. That is something we obviously have to look forward to. So, in many African countries, we've seen formal employment opportunities shrinking. Everybody wants to be done with school, everybody wants to get done with college, and wants to not just enter into the workforce or enter into the workspace, but they actually want to own their own organizations. They want to actually put those innovations and ideas that they have in their head, obviously, to work. We've seen a whole lot of youths walk in that path. But innovation goes beyond just survival, as much as we know. It's about creativity, it's also about impact, which brings me to ask, how do we nurture young people, not just to build businesses, but to build with vision and a long term purpose?
I think first of all, it will have to be led by passion and purpose. Because
Okay.
what mostly happens, specifically entrepreneurs, they like to chase the money first. They're driven by the money. Think, okay, cool, I want to do this because I want to get money. But behind it, there has to be something driving you, telling, saying, okay, cool, I'd like to push this initiative because there's a why behind it. What is the why? The why could be to uplift the community, the why could be to uplift human empowerment, whatever the case may be. So what happens with the time that once you feel you started with your startup, and for the first 6 months nothing happens, you want to give up. So I believe that you would have to understand what you're trying to do and actually do your research and gain a knowledge in terms of what am I trying to go for, what are the what could possibly go wrong. Start off with that, and through understanding that you have a better understanding with the creativity, which will lead you to your vision and to your purpose.
Okay, so in all of this, you mentioned the aspect of young people are more interested instead of the impact or the purpose, they're more invested in the profit. They just want to make money off of all of these ideas. I mean, at the end of the day, we all want to. But let me find out. Let me pick a brain a bit. What do you think is one of those misconceptions that we get to hear a lot of people say about young people, especially when we hear a young person wants to start business? I do not believe it's a misconception when we actually say that they're all after the money. We all know that we are. But what's that misconception you hear a lot of people say whenever they get to hear that a young people is or young person actually is about to start a business? What's that misconception, and how do you think we can obviously break it
Yeah,
down?
I would like to. We as a youth are chasing the money. That that can't be denied at all. But within that, I think there should be a percentage of passion behind it. Um, because I just feel like
Okay.
you have to be passion driven to get to get to the profit or to get the profit that you're trying to actually go for. So with us within the youth, with understanding the patience, the money will come. I'm not sure if you heard about the phrase before.
Okay, just to be clear, I don't think you're getting my question. Let me break it down this way. There are some things that we get to hear let's say the Gen X get to say about young people when they're actually starting off a business. There are a few things they get to say when they see a young person want to start up the business. Maybe you've heard most of them say these things and you think they're actually they're not actually telling the truth, or they're not seeing it out in our own perspective. If you were talking to an older generation that has his or her own views in supporting youth-led startups, what do you think they say a whole lot that you think they have to change that mindset? They need to change that perspective about what they think about young people starting up businesses. What's that thing you get to hear them say that you feel they need to change?
Well, what normally happens that as from the older generation, what they normally tell us that once you've started, don't let the money change you. And that'll actually come about in terms of how do you, I'm telling you, that'll come about in terms of how do you accommodate the people around you, your colleagues, your just your anyone around you, because there'll come a time where once you get a lot of profits, you tend to have an ego in terms of say no, let's have it my way. So as a youth, we've been taught to be patient, which is something that we don't have. And once we get the patience, that's when we understand how to do everything properly. And within that comes consistency.
Okay, so obviously we need to also let the older generation give us a break in that
Yeah.
aspect too. Okay, so let's talk about challenges that the youths are obviously facing in any businesses or any innovation they're obviously wanting to start. Because I want to believe that a lot of our audience are here taking notes and have a lot of things to learn from you. Now, if there's any huge hurdle for a lot of young persons who want to start any business, whether young or even old, funding is always a huge hurdle, especially for the young. I mean, first time founders, there's a lot of stress when it comes to that aspect. Reports actually indicates that only 12.5% of funded African tech startups in 2024 had a female CEO. Now, obviously, this highlights gender disparities here. But then we also get to talk about, according to Partech's 2023 report, 85% of African VC funding still goes to male founded startups, mostly led by older entrepreneurs. What strategies do you think can be implemented to create a more inclusive funding environment for young and, of course, diverse entrepreneurs, irrespective of their gender or age?
Yeah, I feel like within the funding department, there are a lot of there are a lot of things they're looking to give you the funding in terms of your business model, ROI, etc., etc. So what normally happens that we need to understand what normally happens within besides getting the funding in terms of like understanding who are you speaking to, your donor, your sponsorship, understanding the narratives of their business to give you the leverage that you want. So what normally happens is that we need to
Okay.
understand what are you putting yourself to in terms of getting funding. It is unfortunate that not everyone gets the VC funding, but within that, I feel like Africa has given more opportunities for the young black child to get specific funding.
Okay, so I mean, if you obviously feel that we're actually in a step in the right direction, then that means we have hope actually for a lot of young people because most of the time, for those who are obviously still invested in employment opportunities, one of the biggest reason where you get to hear the young person say, one big hurdle or one big challenge for me starting up a business is because I lack the funds. And I do believe that before I would actually start looking for partnerships and sponsorships and people who are obviously organizations who are going to fund me, it would take a lot and it's almost impossible. But if you see or feel that for Africa, it's actually way better, then I mean, I guess we're actually
No,
one
most
step
most
ahead in the
definitely.
right
I
direction.
think the past 2 years or so, we've
Okay.
actually allocated a lot of funding within the African continent. I've been looking around through the news. More VC funding is coming out within Africa and from across the world. And one thing I've noticed that most African countries are actually getting more investors across the European nations. So we are heading in the right direction. It will take some time, but we are heading in the right direction.
Okay, so now since we've been able to track the challenge of funding, we also know that there are other challenges that youths face actually. Many youths have great ideas, but they also lack access to technical mentorship, global exposure, or even policy support. What are the non financial gaps you believe are most underestimated in discussions around youth led innovation?
It's within mentorship. I wouldn't be a if I wasn't taught how to be a. And I'm here because I was able to actually listen to the people who have paved the way within the industries of the organization that I built. So I
Okay.
feel like within the African youth or any Pacific youth, we need to have a lending hand that we can listen to and guide us into the right direction that we're trying to head into. So I think for any startup individual who are looking to grow their business, they need to understand what other people have done to be where they are, which falls under mentorship. So I think mentorship is a critical department within any startup. It'll be ideal to actually have more mentors within the African continent to mentor the young startup individuals.
Now, if we're pushing forward, let's talk about redefining leadership or how the youths are obviously pushing forward with the status quo. Today's young founders are not only building businesses, they're changing a lot of things. And I would want to obviously add that they're challenging a lot of old models of leadership. There's less hierarchy in the office space, more collaboration, more social consciousness. Would you say, with all of these things that are actually popping up in the workspace due to the youth-led startups that we get to obviously see, would you say African startup leadership is experiencing a cultural reset? And what do you think that means for the future of work and entrepreneurship?
What a question. So
Yeah.
I say we are gradually getting into the shift of leadership within the African continent. You're finding out that most leaders right now are starting to become within the youth age, because we tend to have old people in parliaments within African countries. And right now, we're actually trying to change that as a youth to say it's our time to be listened to right now. It's our time to shine. And it's our time to be listened to in terms of leadership. It'll take some time, most definitely, because one thing I've noticed that within the youth we are misunderstood in terms of how do we vocalize our voices to the youth, to the public. I mean, to answer your question, I'd say that it is going to take some time for young leaders to be in leadership, but we are in the right direction. It will take some time, unfortunately, because you know how the older generation might be. They might not really be ready to give us the baton and run the race.
Okay, so at this, the fact is we're one step ahead. At this, we're seeing something, we're doing something. So that obviously means a lot.
Most
There is hope
definitely.
in that aspect. Although I still feel that we've taken more than one step because with the rise of youth-led startups, and not just the whole aspect of youth-led startups, the aspect of employment opportunities, you see a lot of youths obviously in the workspace, not just because they've just graduated. A lot of people use these young minds, and with their presence there, it's beginning to actually evoke a lot of changes. So I feel that maybe we're two steps ahead, maybe not one.
Yeah, two is good to say.
Okay, so
Yeah, sounds way
two's
better.
good, right? Okay. So let's talk about the work that you've been doing. I've actually gone through a lot of them, and you're doing an amazing job. And if I want to trace back to 2018, the Dream Big, Stay Humble, 2017, actually, I think that's when you actually started
Correct,
that journey,
correct.
right? And if I'm correct, it was inspired by your grandfather's
Yes,
legacy.
correct, correct, correct.
Simply amazing. I mean, I've seen you advocate for community and purpose. Now, these are values that are sometimes seen as soft in the hard world of startups. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that again. These are values that are obviously seen as way too soft. In the hard world of startups, you're supposed to be sophisticated. You're supposed to be able to put in the work. I mean, you're a startup for crying out loud. But it seems that purpose is beginning to get a competitive edge. Do you think purpose driven leadership will gain more traction in Africa's startup space? I mean, with the likes of you obviously taking over, so do we think that we're going to be seeing more purpose driven
Well,
startups?
I'll say yes because the reason behind it, they all have their own why behind it. I have my own story, as I mentioned before when we
Okay.
started the interview, that I was driven because I couldn't get specific resources. I know I'm not the only African child who's got their own story to tell. We all have our own story to tell, and that's going to be driven behind your why and your passion and your purpose. So, yeah, just to answer your question, I think it's driven, and within that, we all know how to get into the right direction we're trying to go to.
Interesting. So now I want to put you in a tight spot again. I don't
You
think I
have,
have
you
yet.
have.
So I just want to pick your brain.
I think
I
you
have?
would.
Okay, so let's do it again then. So if we obviously know you're purpose driven, but if we were actually to, I'm not trying to say you're not realistic though, but if we're actually trying to put purpose and profit in the same ring, who do you think will win the fight?
Um,
Not for you, Joe. If you're talking about generally for a lot of persons, if we want to be, okay, let me just use the word. If you really want to be
yeah,
realistic, Joe, who do you think would obviously take the win? Who would take the
you're
trophy home?
putting me in a tight situation right now. Um,
I said I was going to do that, right?
I'll stick to my word. I'll stick to my word. I say passion, 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 passion will drive to the passion
Okay.
will drive to the profits.
Passion is going to beat profit
Correct.
hands down.
Yeah.
You're sure? The world is definitely going to be a better place if that's what's actually going to happen. I'll leave it to you. I mean,
I'll answer
you're
that.
the
I'll
judge.
answer this
I'm not here
question
to
in the next
actually.
meeting.
You answered this question in next meeting, but I think you already did. I think you already answered the question. Okay, now let's talk about the future. Let's look at the future and obviously what it holds for the likes of us. Let's talk about the next decade. With the rise of digital platforms and increasing internet penetration, do you actually believe Africa is on the cusp of becoming a global hub for youth led innovation? And of course, if we're able to actually achieve this, how do you think, or what steps do you think are obviously necessary to realize this potential?
Well, I feel like within the African continent right now, all eyes are on us as the youth.
Mhm,
Firstly, within leadership, within creativity, within marketing, media, etc., etc., and it'll it'll define us to connect as one another in African countries. Because through that, I believe that we
mhm,
can indulge more growth within Africa. And what's happening right
mhm.
now between you and I, you from Nigeria, I'm from South Africa, and that's a symbolization of saying that unity is taking us somewhere. And within South Africa, we like to call it Ubuntu. And through that, we understand that if one can connect with another, we can do so much together.
Most interesting. If we connect together, we can obviously do so much together. I would definitely leave with that one in my head. Aside from the meeting we're going to have
Passion,
about this
yeah,
whole
we'll
passion
connect
and
together.
profit thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely connect together on that one. Anyways, it's been a pleasure and obviously an amazing time here on the show with you, Kai. I mean, I've definitely learnt a lot.
Thank
So
you so
thank
much
you
for
so much
having
for being
me.
a part
I'll
of
come
Tech
to
Fashion
Nigeria
Special today.
someday. Thank you so much.
We're looking forward to it. Speaking
I've
of, have you been to
never,
Nigeria
all my
before?
friends have been besides me.
Mm. Okay, so I listen and I won't judge because I mean we're both even. I haven't
Okay,
been
we
to
have to
South
sort this
Africa.
out. We need to sort this out as soon as possible.
We definitely need to sort this
Thank you
out.
so much.
I've been looking forward to that. Thank you so
Cheers.
much. You
Bye.
have a great day. Thank you. From courage to creativity, the youth are not just the future of Africa. They are shaping its present, if I must add. As you've heard today, the startup space isn't just evolving, it's being redefined by a generation that dares to do things differently. Anyways, thanks for staying with us. And remember, if you're building with purpose, you're already leading the change. This has been Tech Fashion Special. See you next time as we keep exploring how tech and innovations are transforming Africa one bold idea at a time.